And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Terry Smith.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm Terry Smith. I'm Executive Vice President, Dean for Academic Affairs at Columbia College, and delighted to be and proud to be a sponsor of today's event. And I would like to also thank Sean for all the work that he has done. He has kept me in the loop on this, and he's been a very hard worker in terms of getting this organized, thanks to Reddy as well. We have a good Columbia College contingent here today. I would like all the students who are currently enrolled at Columbia College just stand up. It's a good group here. And then alumni of Columbia College, stand up. We RCC, right? I understand that BOOM, boom, doesn't stand for anything. Well, maybe it could. I had a thought coming in, but it could be business opportunity outside the mainstream. Boom. So just a suggestion. I had some brief prepared remarks, and after I heard the Stansberry twins talk, I completely abandoned them. First of all, it's a very tough act to follow. Secondly, the number 22 keeps coming into mind because you can look at that from both ways. The first way is 22. These ladies are not really 22. As you can see from their professionalism and maturity, but then also to look at them, you look at them and say, these ladies aren't really 22. So the 22 actually cuts both ways. We are so proud of you, Brandon Bailey, and what you have done. And I have heard their presentation a number of times. It's always different, but even if it were the same, I'd never tire of it because they believe so strongly in what they're doing. And you know, the thing about what they're a product of and what the students from Columbia College are, MU as well, and those of you who are from a liberal arts background, they're a product of a liberal arts education. And there's really no substitute for it because if you get a good liberal arts education, you're not only going to be prepared for a career, but you're going to be prepared for the career that doesn't even exist today and that's going to be coming at you in 15 years, and you will have the skills and you will have the abilities. Columbia College, since I've got a minute to talk about it, we have a strong business program, products of it, many of them here today, either currently enrolled or graduates. We're embarking on a great journey into a actual entrepreneurship major and program. Our goal is for it to be one of the premier programs of its type, and you can see the potential is already there. Again, thanks for the opportunity to speak and for our ability to sponsor today's event. We're very proud of all the entrepreneurs, and this is a great event for Columbia and for the area, and continued success to all of you in the entrepreneurial business. Sarah?
College. Also want to introduce Carolyn Paris from the Callaway Bank.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for having us today. And on behalf of the Callaway Bank, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to be a sponsor of this event. When we learned about this event, we said, this is where we want to be, because the entrepreneurial spirit, the entrepreneurial energy that you bring to this is what makes our community grow. And as a community bank, we are dependent on you, and we want to be there to serve you and support you. So thank you again for your presence and for the opportunity to support this. My joy is to have an honor to introduce such an extraordinary talent, named to Inc. Magazine's 2011 30 Under 30 list as one of the best entrepreneurs in the country under 30 years old. The New York Times and USA recognized Arel Moodie as a top Gen Y entrepreneur. Acknowledged by President Obama for Arel's work as a young leader in America. Arel Moodie is the best-selling author of Your Starting Point for Student Success, a book not about helping students go to college, but more importantly about helping students successfully go through college to truly succeed in school and in life. Growing up on welfare in the projects of Brooklyn, New York, he was able to overcome his situation and start his first successful internet company while in college. Now, as a professional speaker and co-owner of the Extreme Entrepreneurship, Arel has already spoken to over 100,000 students in 43 states in 4 countries while still in his 20s. Thank you for joining us, Arel Moodie.
What's going on, y'all?
He's doing the happy dance. It's great to see you.
How are you?
Oh, hey, tell the people again where you are joining us from. Las Vegas, huh?
Yep, so right now I'm actually in Las Vegas, part of Tony Hsieh. If you guys ever heard of Zappos, he has a downtown project where he's revitalizing downtown to make it an entrepreneurial hub. So I'm out here with my company Impact doing some work with some great young entrepreneurs.
Great. Well, this is a completely interactive experience from the audience. We will take questions from the audience, so if you can come to the mic. Also, take questions from around the world as well. So if you have a question and you're in the Hangout and would like to ask it, if you would put that in chat so that we can make sure that we call on you. Can you talk a little bit, Arel, about your upbringing and how you ended up in the startup world?
Yeah, so the quick background of it is just to let some people know where I am and literally nothing special about me whatsoever. I grew up in a projects on welfare in Brooklyn, New York for the first 18 years of my life. When I went into college is when I first even heard about the word entrepreneurship. It first happened because I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which if you guys haven't read, that's a 100% writer-downer, great mindset-changing book. From there, wanted to get introduced to successful people, and by default, I kept being introduced to entrepreneurs. I didn't even know they were entrepreneurs. So from there, I took an entrepreneurship class at my college, and my professor became one of my best mentors, and still to this day is one of my greatest mentors. And he really showed me what entrepreneurship was about, showed me about the power of entrepreneurship, and I entered a business plan competition because of his recommendation. We won that business plan competition for my very first company, which was called placefinder.com, which was a off-campus housing service. And from there, as anyone who's an entrepreneur knows, once you do one venture, it has an interesting way of kind of snaking into different opportunities. So I usually like to say it doesn't matter where you start because it's probably not going to be where you finish.
Indeed, we have a lot of young people and young entrepreneurs in our audience right now. If you're under 21, if you would raise your hand. I know Nick Rodriguez, I saw him earlier. A lot of hands going up in the room right now talking with Arel Moodie. What's your vision specifically for youth entrepreneurship?
So the vision really is to get more folks realizing that entrepreneurship is as viable as a career path as anything else. You know, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, that's all well and good. That's fantastic, and people should still do that. We don't hear the word entrepreneur in that same sentence, and I think that more programs like this, more exposure to people like the 2 young girls that we saw who are doing amazing things, that type of exposure will make entrepreneurship the same viable career path as everything else, and that really is what is going to take us into the next generation of success as a country.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about specifically college students, because we have a lot of college students in the audience as well. What specifically can they do to prepare for the startup world?
The most important thing I would recommend folks doing to prepare for the startup world is 2 things. The first thing is you want to start reading as many books as you possibly can about entrepreneurship. An idea that was given to me at a young age that stayed with me till now is that there literally is not one problem that you can face that somebody else hasn't already faced, overcame, and written a book about. So whether it's stuff like the E-Myth or, you know, the lean startup, everything you need to know is already out there. You just have to be an active consumer of information. So start reading tons of books outside of just what you have to read for your coursework. And the second part is you have to get around people who are doing what you want to do. The theory of being an entrepreneur is it's like a dragon. It's like, what is this big mystical thing? But when you start to get around people that are actually doing it and have experience with it and can walk you through the process, it becomes way less scary. And then you start saying, well, if this person could do it, I could definitely do it. And that is 90% of the battle, is just feeling that it's something you can do and the information's out there for you to find.
All right, Ronnie Benser has a question from Colorado. Go ahead, Ronnie, unmute and ask your question.
All right, I am ready. And by the way, I love that Rich Dad Poor Dad series. It's a total mind changer, how to make money work for you rather than you work for money. That's the primary thing out of there. But here's a question I've got. It's about entrepreneurship, and what I'm learning personally and seeing a lot is, how do you prep for coming back from failure?
It's a great question.
I think that's a big part of it, right? Okay.
I think that awareness is actually one of the easiest things to do to prepare for failure. And I know this sounds crazy, but if you know, and the truth is, and I don't want to scare too many of you out there, but just if you look at the statistics, your first business is going to fail at some extent. It's not going to be the success that you want it to be. And for most people, they say, no, but this is my child, and this is my baby, and this is everything that I want. But if you go in knowing that you're going to have tons and tons of failures, and it's a natural part of the process, that everyone before you has become very successful, has failed, and the odds are extremely high you're going to be no different than the Steve Jobs of the world, or the guy who owns the laundromat in your town. If you know that failure is a part of the process, when it happens, you shouldn't be surprised by it. You shouldn't be like, no, the world's over. You just get to step back and say, this is a natural part of the process. As long as I don't quit, I don't actually fail. And that's kind of the end game. If you know that stumbling blocks are naturally a part of the process, which I like to call them more than failures, hurdles or stumbling blocks, because those are things you can always get over. A failure is when you quit, when you throw in the towel. So if you know it's going to happen, so when it happens, just say, it's a natural part of the process. It's happened to the best. It's happening to me. Therefore, maybe I'm part of the best. And that just mindset shift is everything that you need to go through those adversities and come out unscathed.
It's a little like maybe like the sales thing where they say that no means you're closer to getting the yes.
Yeah. I mean, try to get 100 no's in a row. You can't. You try. Try to get 100 people to say no to you about anything. You can literally just walk up and say, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? You can't get 100 no's in a row. And if you do get 100 no's in a row, high five yourself, because that's impressive. But if you get some yeses along the way, high five yourself too. That's pretty cool.
Michael, we have a question from the audience. Go ahead, Mary.
Can you hear me? I don't know if this is more of a statement and for feedback than a question, but once again, my interest is always in helping underprivileged and disadvantaged in education and all those types of things. And I was just wondering, like, for example, like Jay-Z or the president or people that were like on drugs or doing different things like that, they eventually became famous and were able to use some of those same skills that they had to market the drugs or whatever, however they do that stuff, but they were able to use those same skills, but instead of going to prison, they became famous and got a lot of different business ventures and were able to do a lot of different things. And so I guess my comment and input to this whole thing is I like to see like social service agencies or different places, if they could kind of tap into that kind of thing. People that get in trouble that maybe because they're bored or they just don't see what they're able to do with their active creative mind, in conjunction with entrepreneurship and how all that works, kind of achieving in spite of adversity. And that was just my comment, and I'd like to know what you think about that.
Yeah, that's so, like what you said, I think is so just fantastic, because I think that's what the idea of exposure is. Now look, I'm not afraid to admit it. I grew up in the projects. I have friends that sell drugs. I have friends that have gone to jail. I've got friends that hustle. When I was growing up, that's what they did. They literally applied the same principles to what I'm doing now, just in a different light. They had accounting systems, they had marketing systems, they had checks and balances. And it's like, if you were exposed to what entrepreneurship could be, you could literally take that same drive and that same skill set and apply it in a venture where you don't have to worry about going to jail, You don't have to worry about getting shot. You don't have to worry about getting stabbed or beaten up. And you can still make the same type of money that you would make. It's the challenge is that people aren't exposed to it. So if there's a way to have more people, and one of the young lady who was speaking, if that's something you're interested in, being that exposure point, you could actually be the catalyst to go into communities. And I do a lot of work. I travel to a lot of low-income, underprivileged areas to speak because I love that personally. And if you can take that exposure and say you can live an awesome life with these same principles, it's an amazing opportunity that should not be missed. And I think it's a way of taking something negative and making it very, very positive.
All right. We now have another question. Yes, Mary, go ahead. You wanted to follow up? Mary Rodriguez, and she's the mother of a talented artist who knows his personal brand very well in social media, Nick Rodriguez. So she just wanted to make sure that I passed that name along to you. We also have another virtual question from Michael. Michael, you want to unmute, tell people where you're from, and ask your question.
Hi everyone, I'm from Brisbane in Australia. My thing is, I was doing some video work earlier in the week at a seminar, and part of that was a speaker got up and talked about using outsourcing and using best value labour for that. What's your opinion on that, Arel, for using? Do you use it? Using
like virtual assistants and that type of work?
Yes.
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually absolutely fantastic. There's actually there's a lot of resources out there for you to find people to do work who are happy to do the work for you at an affordable rate. And the reason why that's so important is because when you start out, you don't have a lot of money. There's one great site that I've been using just a ton lately and have been very impressed with the quality, which is similar to what you're saying, is a site called Fiverr.com. If you guys haven't heard of it, you literally can get people to do the most amazing things for you for $5. And the website is Fiverr.com. I'm talking about design, web pages, design flyers, write HTML code, make designs, t-shirt designs. I mean, like almost anything you could think of, there's a community out there. And they all willingly do it for $5 or less. So you can employ people per project. You can employ people on an ongoing basis. So I've got a virtual team that I work with that span areas from Canada to New Jersey to India. And I also have people that I contract with through sites like Fiverr that have become really awesome go-to people, and it cost me $5 to do it, which I love that price point.
Arel, if you would give that website out again. People were frantically writing it down, but give it out again if you would. Yeah,
this life, it's going to change everything. Fiverr.com, Fiverr. So it's the word five with the 2 R's at the end. Fiverr.com. And if you go there...
Sorry.
Yeah.
There are a couple of others as well. There's Odesk and Elance, and there are a few others along that. There's an Australian one as well, but I can't remember the name of that one. So, but Odesk and Elance are probably the biggest.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great resources as well.
We also have a question from Chad. Chad Lafarge is from Columbia, Missouri. He's a software engineer and a realtor and a bunch of other things, and is experimenting in the human media movement. What's your question for Arel Moodie?
And a bunch of other things. That's a good summary of that. Arel, you mentioned early on that you found yourself just constantly running into these entrepreneurs, meeting these entrepreneurs, not knowing what they are at the time. And I understand that we kind of become an average of the people who are closest to us, and that if you want to become something, you should surround yourself with people who are that thing. How do you recommend people inserting themselves into the circles of those entrepreneurs, of those people who are doing that? How do you find those networks?
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's an important question, because when I first started out, I literally had no connections. I knew no one. And that whole you got to know someone type deal was very frustrating for me. So here are the very, very specific strategies I recommend everyone employ. You'll go from like no connections to like knowing people in the White House in a couple of years if you apply what I'm about to share with you. First thing that I recommend you do. One is, if you read a book and you like that book, find out where the author is, and you can usually find an author on Twitter very easily. And usually people who write business books are popular, but not famous. And the reason why there's a difference is trying to get Kim Kardashian to return your email or tweet is pretty much impossible. But getting someone who's written a really good business book to maybe return your email or tweet is pretty high. That's actually one of the things I did. I reached out to a young man named Michael Simmons who I wrote an entrepreneurship book, and I loved it. And I emailed him. I found his email online. It's pretty easy to find anyone's contact. LinkedIn.com, Twitter.com. It's going to be your best resource for that. And I just literally started reaching out to every author, and some of them actually responded. And then I always asked them, if it's okay with you, could I ask you a few questions? And you'd be surprised how many people say yes. 2, go to someone in your local community, the pizza shop owner, the laundromat owner, the comic book store owner, the video game place, wherever it is, and say you're doing a personal project and you'd love to interview them about their story. Any person that you ask to interview them about their story is going to feel like $1 million bucks. They're going to say yes, definitely. And here's the magic question. You interview them, ask them about how they started their business, what they did right, what they did wrong, what you wish you could do. And here's the magic question. At the end of every interview, you ask them, is there someone that you know that I could interview as well that you think would be helpful? And what you'll find is that all you need is that first interview, and then a successful person knows a successful person. They'll start introducing you to other people, and then all of a sudden you have a really big network if you stay in touch with them. There's also a lot of great online resources. I recommend everybody go to empact100.com, which is www.empact100.com. That's a list of the 100 top young entrepreneurs in the country. That's something that Impact, one of my companies, started. Like literally, you can look at the top 130 top young entrepreneurs under 30 who are doing amazing things, and you can just reach out to them and say hello, and they'll be so excited to connect with you. And you can also go to the YEC.org. That's another great organization that's got a lot of great young entrepreneurs, and they put out great content for young entrepreneurs. So literally, find them online, reach out to them, go to your local community, interview them, ask to be connected to other people. You'll be amazed how powerful this strategy actually is.
I love that last question, and I think that I remember reading something about how Napoleon Hill, when he was writing his books for Carnegie, that's how he was able to get from one of those amazing people to the next of those amazing people, is just by having them write down a name and give them a little introductory letter. So great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, if you've ever played that game. We're all connected to Kevin Bacon. So we're all connected to the person you want to meet. It just may take a few introductions.
And Ronnie made a great point in chat, which we have open up there. If you can see some of those websites that he was listing about Odesk and Impact100.com as well. Ronnie was mentioning that those individuals that you reach out to talk to, you can actually interview them via a Hangout, and it records on YouTube as well. So that's a pretty neat feature. 2 skills, Arel, that you wish every graduate had to be successful in the startup world.
2 skills. Great question. The first, it's actually going to be so simple. It's going to freak you out. And people, I'll challenge you when I say this to not say, yes, I already know that, but ask yourself, am I doing what I'm about to say? The first skill is applying the knowledge that you learn. Like literally, I talk to so many people that say, oh yeah, I already know that. Oh yeah, okay, you're supposed to have a website. Yeah, I know that. Oh, you're supposed to read books. Okay, yeah, I already know that. And my follow-up question to anyone who's not achieving the goals that they want is always, well, are you doing it? Tell me about and how often are you doing it? So there's a gap between knowledge and there's a gap between the application of knowledge. The second thing, which I think is an amazing skill set, is, man, there's so many, and it's hard to narrow it down to 2, but I'll say this. You need to shorten the time between idea and action. It's a skill set. It's literally saying, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to do something about it right now. Versus, hey, that's a cool idea, and then you sit on it, and then 5 years later you see somebody else making $1 million on TV with the same idea that you had. So ideas are worth absolutely nothing. Brainstorming is worth absolutely nothing. Masterminding is worth absolutely nothing if you don't actually apply it. And I also believe you increase your odds of success when you limit the amount of time between idea and action. So if you become someone who has an impetus for action, if you become someone who, as soon as you get an idea, you really like it, you take some type of action to move towards it, you'll find a lot more things start opening up. You know, you could be at this right now, hear me and say, yeah, you know what, interviewing people in my local area who are successful entrepreneurs, that's a good idea. The person who leaves here and does it like today or tomorrow, the odds of that person becoming successful way outweigh the person who say, oh, that sounds cool, good to know, and they don't do anything about it or do something about it 6 months from now. Just like, it's fantastic if you apply that idea.
So I got a live question to follow up that last point. How do you go about shortening that distance between idea and action when you feel like you're already overwhelmed with so many thoughts and ideas you haven't done yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you're an entrepreneur, if you think like an entrepreneur, you probably have 50 million ideas every moment. How do you choose which one to focus on? Here's what I always say, and that's what, it's hard, by the way, it's not easy, but you have to ask yourself, what is your primary objective right now? If you are starting a t-shirt company, and then all of a sudden somebody says, I got this great idea for software, well, you have to ask yourself, is the software my primary objective, or is the t-shirt my primary objective? Now, the software company may have the potential to make way more money, but the t-shirt company is something that you can actually tangibly do right now. Like, I right now could have a great idea for how, using tidal waves as an energy source is going to revolutionize the country. It's a great idea. Put a little, energy reader in where the waves are, the waves hit it, we get energy. It's a great idea. I don't have the capital or the resources or the knowledge to actually make that happen. But creating a t-shirt company, that's pretty straightforward. So you have to ask yourself, what is your primary objective right now? What are the resources that you have at hand? Focus on that and take as much action as you can to make that real. Everything else, you can take a note and write it down. And if you get the idea, just ask yourself, does this move me towards my primary objective? If the answer is yes, do it. If the answer is no, just create a book, create a Word document, create a Google Hangout app. I love Google Docs personally. So just make a list of those ideas and revisit them from time to time.
Because we're running out of time here, Brian Bondis just tweeted me asking, can you ask Arel if he has any free newsletters that he'd suggest, Arel? Free newsletters that you would suggest, or blogs that you would recommend people subscribing to?
Yeah, so when it comes to like content creation, it always comes down to what are you most interested in learning right now. If you want to do like web stuff, like if you want to learn how to be a good web marketer, there's a guy called Neil Patel. He's got a website called quicksprout.com, which is fantastic for that type of information. If you're interested in sales, I go into YouTube and type in Sandler Sales Training, and they've got some fantastic videos on how to do sales. If you're interested in social media, there's great resources. There's a young lady who does a company called Marketing Zen, and her name is Shama Kabani. She does amazing things with social media. So it really depends on what you're most interested in, and I would always recommend whatever your interested topic is, type that into Google and then type in the word blog, and then find out what calls to you. The stuff that calls to me may not be the stuff that calls to you. The stuff that's written in a certain language for me may not work for you. But if you start, within 1 to 2 articles or YouTube videos of someone, you'll know if you like them, if it's a good fit for you.
All right. We have reached the end of our time. I know that you and the Hangout also have additional questions. So the conversation continues in our Hangout with Arel, and we will move on in our program. Arel, thank you so very much for your time. Tell people where they can find you, your social sites, can they connect with you?
Absolutely. Luckily for me, my mom named me a really weird name, so I'm the only Arel Moodie that exists in the world that I know of. So you can find me on Twitter at Arel Moodie. You can find me on Facebook.com/Arel Moodie. Check my website out, arelmoodie.com. Check out Impact, which is going to be E as in Edward, M as in Mary, P as in Paul, ACT.com, and we'll put that website in the chat, which has got tons of different web portals for entrepreneurs. Definitely listen, if you learned one thing that was helpful today, if you tweet it and you @ me, it makes my day more than anyone will ever know. It makes me feel so happy when I go into Twitter and check out all the little red bubbles from tweets and comments and stuff like that. So hit me up on Twitter, and I'd love to stay in touch.
And they are on their phones right now, probably tweeting you as you speak. And also, is this your first Hangout? Is this your first Hangout?
This is my first Hangout. Yeah, I loved it.
We got to give you a high five, a Hangout high five, virtually from Columbia, Missouri to Las Vegas. Welcome to Human Media, and hopefully here in the future we'll also see you on Google+. So thanks for sharing your time. And
thank you, Sarah. Thanks everyone from Boom. You guys are awesome. Rock it out there.